Uh, DK goes on and says something very disappointing to some people. He says, I shall not, therefore, deal with the subject of of esoteric astrology from the standpoint of the horoscope at all. Well, you know, he does a little bit. he he tells us a little bit about the houses of the horoscope, and he even encourages us to devise spiritual meanings for the houses of the horoscope. So each one of them can be interpreted on at least two levels. He gives us the first two, house number 1 and house number 2, and then he says, now you go on and you do the rest. So in a way, he does reference the horoscope obliquely in various places, but he's certainly not involved in that kind of, oh, tell me all about myself, individual astrology that so many of us can't help but be interested in at a certain point in our lives until we outgrow it, if we ever do. So anyway, he tells us universal relationships, let's call them cosmic. The interplay of energies, how they all affect each other and combine, and meaning different things in combinations. The nature of what lies behind the great illusion. The deluding appearances of things as they are. What a magnificent definition for the great illusion. And the destiny of our planet, of the kingdoms in nature, and of humanity as a whole. These will constitute the major part of our theme. Well, I don't think he's dealing with what lies behind the universe, considered as the great illusion. We're in the Mahamaya, the universe itself, considered by the highest seers, is itself an illusion. But he's talking about the local great illusion. The illusion that everything revolves around the earth, that the sun actually moves when it is we who are doing the moving, that the stars do not move, that they maintain their fixed position. See, in the old days they were called the fixed stars because the only kind of equipment that man had was his naked eye, and he did not know about their proper motion. He did not know how far the constellations, the stars in a particular constellations, really are from each other. He did not know that light had a certain rate of speed, and that when we look at Sirius, we're looking at a star as it was 8 years ago. But then when we look at the 3 accompanying stars, which seem, well, relatively bright compared to Sirius, they are all in the constellation of the dog, greater dog. When we look at them, we're looking at where they were 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. So the configuration of the stars as constellations is itself an illusion depending upon our point of observation. In other words, it doesn't really exist. The ideal observer who could see all things at the same time would not see the constellations as we do. Yet, I must say, the fact that we do see them as we do, and that they create the figures in the sky as they do, is significant for us. And the influence of their energy as it reaches us does relate to these configurations. In other words, let's say the Big Dipper or the Great Bear means something to us because of where we are, and it does fulfill that kind of function of the wagon, of the dipper, of the bear. It fulfills all those functions. If we were to look upon this aggregation of stars from a completely different point of view, it would not look like any of those figures, and for the observer who was looking upon them, it would have the meaning of the configuration that he saw. So this is rather mysterious. It shows that there are illusions, but the illusions actually convey effective energies which are allied to the nature of the illusion. So what the Great Bear is fully and completely to our solar system and our local cosmos may be quite different from what it is to an observer completely in a different position in space. Yet after all, there is an essential meaning to each of these aggregations of stars. A friend of mine who was scientifically inclined once said, well, you know, they're not really constellations at all, it's just appearances. But then I pointed out to him, or it was evident, that DK does see these aggregations as related stellar entities who have a Lord working through all of them. The Lord of the constellation Aries, the Lord of the constellation Libra, and so forth. So exactly how these stellar entities are related to each other and why and what is their history, okay, we may not know that. We won't know that yet, and maybe even the great astrologers in the hierarchical department of astrology, maybe even they don't know all of that. But one day we will know these things. We have nothing but beings in relationship with each other according to the quality that they manifest. So first of all, we have to understand the quality of a being in apparent space, and then we have to understand why that being relates to another being with a different quality and what is served by that relationship. You know, we can bring it down to our own level. We have friends that are very different from the way we are. We are as we are, they are as they are, but the relationship between us has its own quality. And if another person is brought into the picture, then each will have his own distinct identity, but the relationship of the threesome will have its own quality, whereas the relationship of any two within that triple unity will have a distinct and different quality. So it's all about, what we're studying here is the great science of relationships. Now DK goes on, boy, are we making progress, already page 7. I think at this rate, especially if I talk more slowly, which certainly prevents my tongue from getting ahead of my mind, that we'll be here until the year 2025. I think that would be a conservative estimate. Well, DK goes on to say, it is immaterial to me whether modern astrologers accept or reject these presented ideas. Well, it isn't that he doesn't expect them to be accepted. He knows in time they will be. He certainly hopes that modern astrologers will experiment with what he's talking about. But he knows the reality of crystallized thought forms, and it sometimes takes people a long time to work their way beyond conventional astrology without necessarily rejecting it into the esoteric field. I've seen some people rebuff it entirely. Some people manage to reach tentatively towards it, and they discover real wonders, and yet they manage to keep the bridge between the conventional astrology and the new astrology they are discovering. So he says, I will endeavor to give you certain facts as the hierarchy recognizes them. Well, okay, we have to trust DK here. He is tremendously responsible in giving us the gems of the ageless wisdom. So even though we may not realize that what he is saying is factual, we have to decide whether we will believe him or not. I just want to say, actually, today is Morya Remembrance Day, March 24th. Lest I forget, I wanted to say that to everybody. The Master Morya said that if you want to remember me on March 24th. I'm sure he has his own reasons for saying that, but I believe he is very identified with the sign Aries in some respect.